Time is new again in this new version of Beauty and the Beast. Here's a quick look at the new film.
My dear Belle, you're so ahead of your time. This is a small village.
You are the most gorgeous thing I've ever seen. Nobody deserves you.
And it's small-minded as well. But small also means safe.
I've come for my father.
He's a thief.
Come into the light. I will escape, I promise.
Look, a girl.
Who said that?
Hello.
You can talk.
Well, of course. It's all he ever does.
How lovely to make your acquaintance.
Want to see me do a trick? What happens when the last petal falls?
The master remains a beast forever.
And we become antiques. What did you do to it?
Nothing.
Get out of here! Go!
You have to help me. You have to stand.
If she is the one who'll break the spell, you must finally learn to love.
Have you really read every one of these books?
Some of them are in Greek.
True as it can be.
Early evening comes, there's somebody else, unexpectedly. Certain as a sun,
Rising in the east.
tell us all the time. Get on the beat! Sun is on his rise. Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast is a remake of a 1991 animated film, which also very much set up the Disney Renaissance era that just people fell in love with over the course of the 90s with Disney's animated films, and ultimately what got my generation and later generations into animated Disney films just because of how wonderful this original film was. So this film had a lot of things to live up to. In the overall Beauty and the Beast story, both in the original and in this remake, it's about a young girl whose father was traveling in the forest about to pitch some invention ideas to another town, and he gets lost and he encounters this castle that has this beast inside it, and the beast holds him hostage. And over the course of this film, we find out what exactly happened to this beast, you know, who exactly he was before he became this thing, that he was this prince in this castle, and that he turned down this drifter and so forth. And eventually Belle goes looking for her father and takes his place over this hostage situation so that he can be free and go back to the town. And over the course of time, she finds out that, you know, by falling in love with this beast, by really giving him a chance and really treating him like a person more so than a beast, they can break this curse so he can potentially go back into the prince he once was, and so that Belle can finally find the love of her life, since everybody in this town, like Gaston and so forth, really aren't meant for her as far as what she wants to fall in love with and so forth. So overall, this new Beauty and the Beast film was very, very good. They definitely remade it in the right way, where it's very much the things you loved about the original without changing too much. So I think that's one strength about the movie, is if you really liked what the original film did, there's a lot of things that that film did that is very much kept here for this new film. So for my positives and negatives of Beauty and the Beast, the acting talent and the singing talent that they gathered for this movie was very strong. I never would have imagined that Emma Thompson or Emma Watson or Luke Evans would have had great singing voices until I saw them in this film performing all these classic songs. This cast was very well established for this movie. You know, Ewan McGregor plays Lemire in this, the little candle guy. They definitely casted this film correctly, I thought. Just the acting talent and singing talent lived up to that original story to tell it to a new generation. They also explored more about Belle's mother in this movie, which I thought was a good idea, because in the first film, I always kind of wondered what happened to Belle's mom, why her father was a single father, and you know why the mom was never talked about. So they talk about her a little bit more in this movie. Once again, it doesn't ruin the original movie. It definitely placed the right moments to explore Belle's mother and so forth. So I liked how we learned a little bit more about Belle and more about her parents in this as well. They also used a lot of practical sets in this movie, which I thought was very, very much a wise choice, because there's a lot of films now where it's just completely CGI sets, completely done on a computer. It's definitely very refreshing to see that there's still filmmakers out there who still want to have practical sets, still have CGI elements on the sets, but the fact that they're practical and they're handmade, I think really adds a layer of quality and creativity to this movie, that they really wanted to make sure that animated film had a great looking live action film also. And the visuals in this film are very good. You can definitely tell that they spent a lot of time making sure the Beast looked very good in this movie. For my negatives of this new Beauty and the Beast film, they do add some new songs to the score this time, and they feel a little unnecessary. They kind of interrupt the story a little bit. One song I can tell you without ruining the movie is on the part where Belle goes back to the town to make sure that they don't do anything to the Beast. There's a new song that the Beast sings that really just kind of disrupts the story a little bit. Really wasn't necessary. It's not a bad song, but there's songs like that that really don't feel like they need to be there. And then my other negative with this movie is some of the songs have a very weak setup to get to that song. The song with Gaston, for example, his first song, there's almost no setup at all of that. And in the original film, they kind of set up why he's singing about the things that he's singing about. In this movie, they just kind of go to that scene and he starts singing. So there's things like that where I feel like the script could have used improvements. And then for my last negative of this movie, there's a wardrobe character in this film that's also in the original film, I'm aware of that, but in this new film it felt very exaggerated. I felt like she had to scream at the top of her lungs whenever she was having a line in this movie, and I felt like they were trying to make her funny, and it just really didn't come off as funny to me. So unfortunately that character wasn't as strong as in the animated film. But overall, I'm going to give this new Beauty and the Beast film a 9 out of 10. It's a very strong remake. If you love the original film, it's not going to ruin your childhood because they live up to that original movie while also changing a few things along the way. For my next film, I'm going to talk about a very clever heist film called Going in Style.
Gentlemen, this is the final rose tonight.
Luke, the only choice she's got.
She's not gonna move to a farm in those heels.
She's kissed them all with her tongue.
She's a walking venereal disease.
Chase.
I'm seeing an overdrawn balance in your daily checking.
Yeah, my mortgage payment tripled.
I've disclosed the possibility of a rate hike during your refi. Do you remember that?
Everyone on the ground, now!
The three men walked off with $1.6 million.
They choreographed it like a dance.
A conga line right into prison.
They didn't get caught.
Semtex Steel has frozen all pension payments.
I'm thinking of robbing a bank.
I'm thinking about buying a Ferrari.
I just got drafted by the Knicks. Good week for everybody, huh? Williamsburg Savings will manage the liquidation of the fund.
These banks practically destroyed this country, and nothing ever happened to them.
I want to rob that bank.
Let's go get our money back. Yeah.
You pick exactly what's on the pension, right?
That's all I want.
What if we get more?
We give it to charity.
It's time for a practice run.
We'll be right back.
I don't want to stay in the car. It's hot in here.
Hello, Al.
I gotta get some chicken thighs.
Breasts are better than thighs, don't you think?
Never has anybody walked off with a whole pork loin.
Jump in a basket.
Who the hell you think I am? E.T.?
I don't know what's going on in the world anymore. Look what you did to Cindy. She's looking like a Colombian drug mule.
We're gonna need professional help.
You think?
You 5-0?
We're practically 8-0.
From now on, you communicate by texting.
How do you work with that buttons?
It's a touchscreen.
I'm groping it all over. Nothing happens.
Reminds me of the time we went to Reno. We ate like kings.
We were kings.
We still are.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Halt! Halt!
What are you chasing me for?
Don't make me tase you!
This is not an admission of guilt. I am just tired.
Going in Style is a remake of an old 1979 film by director Martin Brest, who later went on to direct the first Beverly Hills Cop film. So this film, like the other film I just reviewed, Beauty and the Beast, had a lot of expectations to live up to. They're both remakes of very classic films. Going in Style, more so in this one than I would say the original. The original was more so about the retirement of these three friends, but this new film is also about three retired friends, and they have this canceled financial plan that they had when they went into retirement. The company that they once worked for, that they worked for many decades, apparently basically completely discarded their original retirement money plan. So now they have to figure out how to get all this retirement money that they were once promised. This company is really not being nice about, making sure that these retirees get all this money that they were once promised. So they come up with the idea of robbing a bank, since Michael Caine goes to his bank for ideas, and while he went for ideas, it was robbed, and he figured out how easy it was to rob this bank. So he goes to his other two friends and pitches the idea to possibly rob the bank, specifically this bank that he went to, since he's had a lot of bad experiences with this bank. So over the course of this film, they have to figure out how they're going to do it, how their old age is going to factor into it, some things that they have to prepare for in order to be able to rob this bank, and some other funny things along the way, like robbing things from a local grocery store just to see if they can rob some smaller stuff before going for that big money at this bank. So this film is very fun, and like I said, it's a remake of an old 1979 film. Zach Braff from Oz the Great and Powerful directed this movie, and he also was in the show Scrubs, for those who remember that. So he's more so directing now than acting, and he definitely made a very good remake here. So for my positives and negatives of Going in Style, the three leads, Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, and Alan Arkin, they have great screen chemistry here. You can tell they had a lot of fun on the set of this movie. They definitely established kind of where these friends are, how, if their spouse is gone or if their kids are out and about, pursuing jobs and so forth, kind of how they want to live more independent lives and so forth. So this film definitely establishes that right away. There's one that definitely spends more time with his grandkids than the actual parents do. So they definitely established this, and they also established kind of where their friendship belongs within these three characters, and kind of how one might like one friend more so than the other and so forth. So the three actors they established here to play these three leads had great screen chemistry in this movie. This is also a very fun and heartfelt heist film. There's even a part in this movie where one of the characters is like, well, look, I just want to take whatever money was originally promised me for my retirement, and then I want to be done. I don't want to have to take, the 10 million or the 20 million out of this bank that we possibly could rob. I want to be able just to take the money that should have been on my retirement plan and just be done with it. So I liked how there's moments like that where they're not so much going for the money, they're going for the thing that they were once promised, and they're doing it more so as revenge for their previous employer and as revenge toward this bank that they really don't like. I also like the routines of these three lead characters. They definitely established right away that these guys kind of had a routine before they were planned on robbing this bank. They definitely always went to the same diner, always went to the same grocery store, always talked to Aunt Margaret at the grocery store that Alan Arkin really likes and so forth. So I liked how they definitely established a routine with these three characters, and as a result, when the routine gets broken to be able to pursue this bank heist, it becomes more fun because we're aware that they're about to pursue something that they wouldn't normally do. But for my negatives of Going in Style, there's a bank employee both at the beginning of the film and towards the end of the film that does show up in this movie that's kind of annoying. I really just wasn't, it definitely didn't work as comedy, it didn't work as drama, and it really didn't add anything to the story. So I don't know what exactly Zach Braff was hoping to get out of this character, rather than to encourage us, the audience, to hate the bank just as much as these three characters do. But overall, this bank employee was just really annoying. His comedy didn't work. So whoever was hired to play this character, either he did a horrible job, Zach Braff didn't direct him very well, or his character wasn't written very well. Whether it was one of those three, this bank employee really needed to be rewritten in this movie. And then for my other negative, if kind of going off that other one, is there is some hit and miss jokes in this movie. There are some jokes that really hit very well, but there's some other jokes that really miss the target pretty badly. So overall, there's just some jokes that really don't work as well as maybe they could have. But overall, I'm going to give this new Going in Style film 8.5 out of 10. It's a very strong remake. For those who didn't see the original, I definitely feel that you won't feel guilty about it just because how good this new film is. It's a very fun heist film. But for my last film I'm going to review on the show today, it's a hidden gem film once again called American Splendor.
Trick or treat!
Look at this. We got Superman and Batman. And what about you, young man?
I'm Harvey Picar.
That doesn't sound like a superhero to me.
Oh, forget this. Why does everybody have to be so stupid?
Here's me, all grown up and going nowhere.
I'm not doing as great as you think.
I gotta get out of here.
My second wife divorced me. I work a dead-end job as a file clerk.
So if you're the kind of person looking for some fantasy figure to save the day, guess what? You got the wrong movie. In the early 60s, I met this shy, retiring cat from Philadelphia.
Meet my buddy, Bob Crumb. You should see his comics.
I could write comic book stories that are different from anything that's being done.
This is great stuff. Can I illustrate them? These are all about you?
Yeah.
You turn yourself into a comic hero.
Ordinary life is pretty complex stuff.
What happened to the new American Splendor?
I think we sold them.
Why does everything in my life have to be such a complicated disaster?
I think you and I got a lot in common.
I don't really know what to expect. The way Crumb draws you have all these wavy, stinky lines.
Those are motion lines. I'm an active guy. Hey, are you Joyce?
Hey, Harvey.
Oh, she might as well know right off the bat I had a vasectomy.
I have all these food allergies, self-diagnosed anemic degenerative illness.
Wow, you're a sick woman.
Not yet, but I expect to be. I think we should skip the whole courtship thing and just get married.
Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Harvey Picar.
You're Harvey Picar. You're famous.
Son, you done good.
You are living the American dream.
I never felt more like a sellout hack in my life.
I'm still a file clerk. I have always been a file clerk.
Could you get me some water and a few aspirin?
What, you got a headache?
No, but I want to avoid one.
You should try believing in something bigger than yourself. It might cheer you up.
What, do I seem depressed?
The reason I chose American Splendor for my Hidden Gem segments this time on the show is I really feel that this is a film that more people need to see, and unfortunately didn't make a lot of money when it first came out in the early 2000s, and that's really too bad because I really feel that this film was very creative and very artful and very well directed, so I really feel like more people should see this film because it's not just your typical blockbuster. It really is a film that's trying to make a statement about comic books, about slice of life, comic books, and just about life in general. So American Splendor is a film about a file clerk in Cleveland, Ohio, who comes up with the idea of basing comics more so around real life, real situation kind of humor that people encounter every single day. He's just really sick of superhero comics and comic books about things that really clearly are never going to happen in real life. So he goes to a guy that he meets called Bob Crumb, who later became a famous illustrator and comic book artist, and he comes up with the idea of making a comic book series about real life situations and kind of starring himself in these comics and definitely making humor at these real life situations that some people might encounter every day in their life. It's just a very well-made film. It's just a very interesting film. It's very intriguing how this Harvey Picar character came up with all these comics and kind of how he got noticed for this and kind of how he didn't get noticed, how he kind of went under the radar as far as like The Simpsons and other successful slice of life stories went, and kind of how this one flew under the radar after a while, and kind of how David Letterman didn't really like this guy when he invited him onto his show at one point. So for my positives and negatives and why I really feel like people should see American Splendor is Paul Giamatti really is a strong choice to play Harvey Picar in this film. Just very funny, hilariously negative about certain things. Whenever he's frustrated or disappointed about something, he finds a good way to portray that in a funny way in the comic books and so forth. So I thought Paul Giamatti definitely portrayed Harvey Picar in the way that I've always remembered him whenever I see like TV interviews with Harvey Picar and so forth. This film also perfectly establishes what slice of life comics are, how it's very much about things like, forgetting your keys at home or forgetting to buy milk at the grocery store, standing in the wrong line at the grocery store and stuff like that. So this film definitely establishes what exactly a slice of life comic is, and I really feel like Harvey Picar is kind of the grandfather of this lesser known genre in comic books. I also like how very real this film feels. I like how Harvey really, he kind of became a celebrity, but kind of not. You know, there's a lot of people that still don't know what American Splendor is. When he was around, because unfortunately he did pass away a couple years ago, there's not a lot of people really knew about him the way he probably should have been credited for, because he really did come up with some really creative ideas for these slice of life comics. So I like how real this story felt. This film is also very realistically creative and clever. You know, it's one of those films where it's not just going for toilet humor or party humor. It really is going for kind of how this man kind of discovered this humor, pitched it to Bob Crumb one day, and how the two of them kind of made sure that this comic book came to life and it became accessible to the general public and so forth. So I liked how realistic and creative this film felt. But for my one and only negative of American Splendor, unfortunately, it's not a film for everybody. If you're not into slower films, if you're not into films that just kind of focuses on characters for a while and, you know, allows them to kind of become this idea and come up with these ideas, you might not like it as much as, say, a person like me, because I really don't mind it when a film becomes a character study to go at a slower pace and so forth. So unfortunately, if you don't really like those kind of films, American Splendor does kind of fall in that category. But for those who want to take a risk and try a different kind of film, American Splendor is definitely the perfect kind of choice for a Friday night. So I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I think it's a very strong film that not a lot of people have seen, that more people should see. So I'll be back in June for another episode of WSTO.